The time is 11:37 a.m. and we're back on the record.
Mr. Borelli, you saw in Exhibit 7 an email from Ms. Lundergan that included chargeback reports, and that report was sorted by Sunrise, correct? And so the information regarding Sunrise was isolated, and we went through that information. And on occasion, you received these chargeback reports, so you do have some familiarity with the data that's contained in them, right?
I've never seen that style report before. I don't remember seeing it, at least.
Right.
Excuse me.
And just to be clear, the style was created by us. We went into the Excel spreadsheet, we printed that document. But the spreadsheet from Ms. Lundergan was a Mallinckrodt produced spreadsheet. So that style you were familiar with.
Okay.
Borelli,
thank you.
Handed Exhibit 10. This is another printout from the Mallinckrodt spreadsheet that we created. So you might not be familiar with the style of this one as well. But as we talked about, you saw a printout from previously from Ms. Lundergan that sorted on Sunrise. So you know that you can go into this database and you can sort based on the different fields in order to collect information. And on occasion, you receive reports that were sorted in various ways, correct?
You said that I can. No, I never went into chargeback data to...
I understand that you didn't sort the data, but you received printouts from the system that was sorted according to various fields, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. So in this printout, we have gone through, and instead of sorting just on Sunrise, we also sorted on Sunrise's downstream customer, Barry Schulz. So do you see the ship-to-customer name and the name Barry Schulz?
I have the same standing objection as to this Exhibit 10 and the questions to this witness.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Sir, do you see the field ship-to-customer name and it says Barry Schulz?
I see the column.
Okay, so you see that Sunrise Wholesale, that's the child customer name, and we talked about what that means before. Sunrise Wholesale is Mallinckrodt's distributor client, right?
I believe so.
And that was your client. Sunrise was your client?
Yes, at that time, yes.
Okay, and then the ship-to-customer name Barry Schulz, that's the downstream customer of Sunrise, correct?
I believe so.
And since there's a physician listed in here, that indicates that this is a dispensing physician, right? Those are the only physicians that would receive shipments from your wholesale clients, right?
I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so you don't know
whether a pharmacy, dispensing physician, a hospital, I'm not quite sure.
Okay, but this downstream customer is not a pharmacy, it's an individual physician, right?
Okay.
And it's Barry Schulz, MD, correct?
That's what it says.
Okay, and you can move down, again, and this is information printed out of Mallinckrodt's chargeback system or the Excel spreadsheets that were produced. You can move down the line and you can see where Mr. Schulz lives. You can see his address, or at least where he works, Delray Beach, Florida. His postal code, and you can see his DEA registration number, right?
I see the column.
Right? And the product number, you see that? That's the SKU. That's something that Mallinckrodt can track. So it knows everything that went from Sunrise Wholesale to Barry Schulz had a product number, right?
I see the column.
And you can also see there's a product description, right?
I see that.
So every drug that was sold by Sunrise to Barry Schulz, you have the product number in this data, and you also, Mallinckrodt, has the type of drug that was sent to Mr. Schulz, correct?
Yes.
And so you can go down this spreadsheet, which is, again, is a sort on Barry Schulz and Sunrise, and you can see that every product purchased by Barry Schulz from Sunrise was a Mallinckrodt-made oxycodone 30 or 15 milligram tablet, right?
In this column, yes.
On this spreadsheet.
Yes.
Right? And you can see the invoice date for every single sale to Barry Schulz by Sunrise, correct?
Yes.
And you can see the gross sales, right?
Yes.
And you can see if there's a chargeback that was paid to Sunrise for its sale to Barry Schulz, right?
Yes.
And you can see the net sales, right?
Yes.
And you can see the quantity shipped from Sunrise to their downstream customer, Barry Schulz, right?
I see that.
And then again, you can see the sales quantity government UOM. And there's a number, 2,000, 3,600, right?
Yes.
And there's not any data on this printout that we've provided to you that is unfamiliar to you, right? All of these fields are information that you have seen at one time or another in information presented out of the chargeback system.
Well, when you say the data is unfamiliar, I'm familiar with the customer. I'm familiar with the products.
Let me ask you
That's
another
my
way.
familiarity with this document.
Right. All of this information is information that you know is maintained in the chargeback system, right?
I believe so.
So, Mr. Borelli, earlier you answered a question of mine about what Mallinckrodt could see after it sold its pills to the distributors that were its clients. And I asked you, so you were saying you had no visibility after you sold pills to the distributor. That's where your visibility stopped on what happened to those pills. And you answered, yeah. Okay. And let me ask you again, based on what we went through, and maybe I'll ask it in a way that makes more sense to you. It's certainly the case that Mallinckrodt knew exactly where its pills were sent by its distributor clients, correct?
Object to the form.
I believe so.
Okay. It's clear that Mallinckrodt, in this chargeback system data, knew for every transaction by a distributor client who the downstream customer was for that transaction, right?
Object to the form.
You can answer.
I believe so.
And there's nothing terribly unique about sorting on Dr. Schulz. Mallinckrodt could also sort on any other downstream customer, including pharmacies, right?
Object to the form.
I'm going to assume yes, but again, I'm not familiar with this system or the sorting process.
Okay. But so when it says the field shipped to customer name, those are the customers of the distributors, and distributors' customers were not just individual physicians, right? They were also pharmacies and pain clinics and other customers of the distributor, right?
I believe so.
Okay. Are you aware of whether downstream customers are also referred to as customers of customers from Mallinckrodt? Have you heard that terminology before?
I've heard the terminology. I don't know if I've heard it at Mallinckrodt, but I've heard the terminology before.
And is that your
I believe so.
understanding of customers are the downstream customers of your customers?
I believe so.
And again, Mallinckrodt in this chargeback system had detailed information about the shipment of Mallinckrodt products between its distributor clients and all of its downstream customers, right?
Object to the form.
I can't speak to all of our. I didn't manage all of our customers, and I don't know the system. So,
But that's your understanding, that you were tracking the downstream customers of your distributors.
Object to the form.
I was not. If you're asking if Mallinckrodt was, I'm going to assume yes, but
Okay.
again, I wasn't in this department.
And pharmacies are also downstream customers of your distributor clients.
I believe so.
And would you agree that it would not be accurate to say that Mallinckrodt lacked detailed information about the shipment of its products between its distributor clients and pharmacies?
Object to the form.
I don't know the accuracy. I mean, I think it's best to ask a chargeback person that question to know the accuracy for the company.
But sir, based upon the information that you've looked through and the chargeback system reports that you received in your time at Mallinckrodt, you do know that the chargeback data included downstream customers that were pharmacies, right?
I believe so, but I just don't want you to, I think you're trying me to chargeback systems, and I'm not comfortable with that.
Right, that's a fair point. I'd like to know just what you know. So you think,
Yeah.
you would agree, based on what you've seen, that it would not be accurate to say that Mallinckrodt lacked detailed information about its distributors' sales to its downstream customers who were pharmacies?
I believe
Object
so.
to the form. Go ahead.
I
I'm
believe
sorry, your
so.
answer was, I believe so?
Yes. But I wasn't in that department, so I'm assuming here.
Okay. You weren't in that department, but again, we've gone through these fields and you see that that there's a customer name, and the customer name is the customer of the distributor, and that can be a pharmacy, or that can be a pain clinic, right? Or that can be a dispensing physician, right?
Hospital, yes.
Okay. It's not your understanding that the chargeback system does not also track sales by your distributors to pharmacies?
Say that again?
Could you repeat the question, please?
It's not your understanding that the chargeback system does not also track sales by your distributors to pharmacies?
Let me put it more simply. The chargeback system also tracks sales by distributors to pharmacies.
Thanks. I believe so.
And from the chargeback data, Mallinckrodt could determine whether a distributor client ordered a limited variety of controlled substances, such as oxy-15s and 30s, while ordering few, if any, other types of drugs, right? So you could see if the downstream customer was only ordering oxy and was not ordering anything else from Mallinckrodt.
Object to the form.
I believe so.
And you could determine whether a downstream customer was ordering an excessive number of pills from the chargeback system, because you could see exactly how many pills that downstream customer was ordering from your distributor customer, right?
Object to the form.
I'm not quite familiar with, I'm not sure when you say excessive. I don't know what that means.
Okay,
You
so
know,
you could see the amount of pills that any downstream customer ordered from any distributor.
Object to the form.
I believe so.
And so Mallinckrodt could assess from that data, in however it chose to do so, whether that order was excessive or not, right?
I believe so.
And you could see from the chargeback data whether a downstream customer ordered from a variety of Mallinckrodt distributor clients, right?
You're speaking about chargebacks chargeback data that I'm just not familiar with. Chargeback data specifically. But
So you
there's a
don't-
team in place. There was a team in place at Mallinckrodt that that was specifically responsible for chargeback data. So that's available, but thank you.
Showing you what's been marked Exhibit 11. This is another printout that we did from the chargeback system data produced by Mallinckrodt. And you'll see that this exhibit sorts on the customer Harvard Drug. You see that?
I do.
And Harvard Drug was another distributor client of Mallinckrodt's, right?
They were.
Okay. And you also see, if you go down the line to ship to customer name, that Barry Schulz was also buying Mallinckrodt Oxy 15 and 30s from Harvard Drug, right?
Same standing objection as before to this Exhibit 11.
I see his name in a column, but I don't see anything else. I see his name and I see an address.
Okay, so you see his name, shipped to customer name, Barry Schulz, and if you go back to the left, you can see sold via child customer name, and it says Harvard Drug. You see that?
Sorry, could you confirm I have a standing objection to this
Yes,
exhibit?
understood.
Thank you.
What was the question?
You see the second column is customer name, it says Harvard Drug, right?
I see that.
But then you also see the next column over, it says DBA, that's doing business as, right? First Veterinary Supply. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay, so what this data shows, which again has been pulled from the chargeback system data produced by Mallinckrodt, is that Barry Schulz, in addition to purchasing Oxy 15s and 30s, which you can see the drug type on the next page, in addition to purchasing from Sunrise, was also purchasing from another distributor client of yours, Harvard Drug, that was doing business as First Veterinary Supply, right?
I don't remember Harvard. You know, I shared with you before that we adjusted customer base amongst the sales team often, annually, minimally, and I'm not familiar with First Veterinary Supply. I'm not familiar with that column.
Right.
And I don't remember if, you know, what time of, when was this? I don't remember when I was responsible for Harvard or not, so.
Well, the date is all of these transactions were between January and February 2010.
Okay, so I don't know if I had Harvard at that time.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure, but.
And whether you had the client or not, this is information that resided in Mallinckrodt's chargeback
Oh,
system
okay.
data, right?
Okay.
And so Barry Schulz, as we saw in an earlier exhibit, was purchasing from Sunrise, and Barry Schulz is a MD, right? That's what the chargeback system said. And on this exhibit, you see that in addition to purchasing from another distributor client of yours, he was being sent pills from a company that was listed as a veterinary supply company, right?
That's what it says here.
So if you had seen this data when you still worked at Mallinckrodt, would you have thought it unusual and perhaps suspicious that a medical doctor was receiving Oxy 15 and 30 from a company doing business as First Veterinary Supply?
Object to the form.
Does that seem suspicious to you?
Object to the form.
I don't know who this person, this doctor is. Is he a vet? Is he? I don't know. I don't know.
Are vets MDs?
I don't believe so.
So you would agree with me that if someone had looked at this data, and I'm not saying that you did, but if someone had, they could have seen that the Dr. Schulz was, in addition to ordering pills from one of your customers, Sunrise, as a medical MD, and by pills I mean Oxy 50 and 30, was also ordering more Oxy 50 and 30 from another Mallinckrodt distributor customer, but this time a veterinary supply company.
Object to the form.
That's all information that's in the chargeback system, right?
Object to the form.
I believe so. I'm not an expert on the chargeback system, so it's best to speak to the team that was in place on the chargeback process.
Right. But you know what a suspicious order is, right?
There was a team in place for suspicious order monitoring. So that.
Right, sir, but you were not, they did not install blinders.
My job is a sales role with
Right.
the company to be a liaison from the company to the customer, to the wholesaler. So you're talking about chargebacks, which I'm not so familiar with, but now you're talking about suspicious orders. So I'm not so. We have a team in place for that as well. So I think it's best to talk to the team that was responsible for that.
Understood, but sir, even without particular training on what is or isn't a suspicious order, in your years of selling opioids, you would agree with me that when a medical doctor orders opioids from a veterinary supply company, that has to be considered a suspicious order, right?
Object to the form.
Can you think of any legitimate reason why a medical doctor orders opioids from a veterinary supply company?
Object to the form.
I can't speak for doctors' practices.
So if the doctor has a DEA registration number, even if he orders from a veterinary supply company, from where you sit and what you understand, that doesn't trigger any suspicious order alarms in your head.
Object to the form.
You can answer.
You're tying in a lot of departments here, and you know my role. So that's a tough one to answer.
That's a hard question to answer. Whether a doctor, a medical doctor buying opioids, Oxy 1530 from a veterinary supply company appears suspicious.
Object to the form.
Yes, it's a tough one to answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Borelli, you've been handed what's marked Exhibit 12, which has spate stamp MNK T1 0000562-327. And this is an email string. And the end of the string, it's a message from you, dated August 4th, 2009, to Bill Ratliff, with a CC to Karen Harper. Who is Bill Ratliff?
I don't remember I remember the name, but I'm not quite sure what Bill did for, I don't remember what he did for Mallinckrodt.
Well, later in the email, it indicates his signature address is Director of Security.
Okay.
Is that your recollection? Does that refresh your recollection?
It says right here, yeah.
Okay. And Karen Harper, what was her position at Mallinckrodt?
I don't know what her title was, but I think she was, I think they're both in the, what you mentioned before, the compliance or suspicious order monitoring department.
Okay. So if you go to the very end of this string, you'll see a message from Dwayne Collins to Bill Ratliff. Do you see that?
I see it.
And do you see the subject line, Florida medication coming into Tennessee?
I see that.
And this is an email that was sent from a detective in Tennessee to the head of security, the director of security from Mallinckrodt, in which he describes an investigation that he was done. Why don't you take a moment and just familiarize yourself with that?
Okay.
So in this email from...
I just read from Dwayne to Bill. You want me to read the entire?
No, we can go through as I ask my questions. You'll see the other portions
Okay.
of the string. I will say for the record that the email from Dwayne to Bill was then forwarded from Bill to Karen Harper, and then from there it was forwarded to Karen Harper responded, and eventually the whole series was CC'd to you, involving some discussion from you, and getting to the top of the email, there's an email from you that that is attached to your email is all of this discussion, some of which you've now gone through. And so the email string starts on July 7th, 2009 with a email from Dwayne Collins, who's a detective in Tennessee, to the head of Mallinckrodt's security department. If you look at the second paragraph of Mr. Collins' email, he states, "My first eye-opening experience to the pharmaceutical sale of oxycodone set me off into the direction of looking at the pharmacies that were filling the scripts. It was then that I found that we were dealing with several pain clinics in Florida where doctors were prescribing an abundant amount of oxycodone medication to numerous Tennesseans, especially within the jurisdiction that I'm assigned." And he goes on to say, "While I was working through this to determine the level of economic impact on oxycodone drug dealing, I came upon some information from a CI where I had 3 individuals who were coming up out of Florida on a regular basis, 2 or 3 week interval, and selling massive amounts of oxycodone, 30 milligrams. You see that? And Mr. Collins goes on to explain that he found some bottles of Oxy 30, and when he looked at the label, he saw that they were manufactured by Mallinckrodt. Do you see that? And then from there, he contacted the head of security at Mallinckrodt, and the head of security then, if you go to the page before that, you'll see there's an email from Bill Ratliff dated July 10th, 2009, with a CC to Karen Harper, in which Mr. Ratliff is able to tell Mr. Collins exactly what was sold by Mallinckrodt's distributor customer to the doctor that prescribed those pills that ended up in Tennessee. Do you see that? And Mr. Ratliff says, "Dwayne, the doctor we discussed ordered the following during the last 12 months, 78 bottles Oxy 15 milligram, 204 Oxy 30 milligram, 20 methadone, 10 milligram, and 4 hydromorphone all came from the customer we discussed except the hydromorphone." Do you see that?
I do.
And you understand that Mr. Ratliff was able to retrieve that information because of the sales transaction data maintained in the chargeback system, right?
Object to the form.
I believe so.
And then if you go to the email moving forward in time, July 15th, 2009, from Bill Ratliff to a number of people with a CC to Karen Harper, he describes a meeting that he then had. Why don't you read that email? It starts on the second page of the exhibit and runs into the third. Yeah, the email at the bottom of that page from...
Where it says for information.
For information, yeah.
You'll
Yes. You don't have to read out loud, just familiarize yourself
Thank you.
with that. Okay, so what Mr. Ratliff writes to this series of people, and again, this is in a string which is then attached to an email that you sent, so you had this string. For information, Karen Harper and I met with the St. Louis DEA Diversion Group Supervisor, Pete Klessel, this morning regarding the information below. We advised that Sunrise Wholesale, Inc. was the only distributor residing in Florida that received this lot. In addition, we advised that Cardinal Health in Ohio has a distribution center in Florida and had received some of the lot, but the doctor listed on one of the 100 count bottles that was recovered only purchased Oxy from Sunrise. For background, Sunrise mainly sells to pain clinics and to dispensing doctors. One doctor was identified by an empty 100 count bottle found by one of 2 informants in the investigation. We track the doctor's purchases through our chargeback system. See below. So that confirms what you said previously, that this information that Mr. Ratliff was able to provide for Mr. Collins came from the chargeback system, right?
Right. You said something about me tied to this email. I'm not on this one. I'm not on this that you asked me to read, I came in later into the conversation, I believe, 2 weeks later.
Right,
That's
so
the
but
first time I
this is-
saw this, right?
Right, but it's an
Okay.
email string attached to an email you sent, right?
Got it.
Do you have any recollection of this series of events?
Not so much. Not so much this, but I do remember organizing a meeting between the customer, wholesaler, Sunrise. I don't know when I did that, but and Karen Harper. I didn't read this page yet, but and Karen Harper. I'm not sure who else was there. I think a few other folks, but I don't remember who else was there. Maybe Bill too. I don't remember.
And do you recall that this doctor who was supplying all these pills that were going to Tennessee was identified by Mallinckrodt as Dr. Schulz?
That's what it says.
And do you recall that?
I don't recall that part of the email. I remember creating a meeting with the wholesaler and our compliance team. Does it say that person in here? Does it say the doctor that we're talking about? Pardon me for a second. You said it says that doctor's name on here, and I didn't.
No, I asked you. Yeah, I don't believe it says Dr. Schultz. I'm asking if you recall that this event related to Dr. Schultz. There's a
No.
number of email.
So I correct myself. No, I do not at all. I thought it said it in here, and I thought I missed it in the reading, but no, not at all.
Where's exhibit 13? Do you have questions on exhibit 13?
Thank you.
Showing you what's been marked exhibit 13. Which is a series of email. Under the subject line it says Ray P. Kleisel Oxy investigation. Do you see that?
I do.
And if you go back to the second to last page, you'll see the email from Bill Ratliff that's addressed to you and John Adams and Karen Harper. You see that?
I do.
And he writes, the DEA Diversion Group Supervisor recommended that we audit Sunrise as soon as possible. Please let me know the best way to accomplish that. Do you see that?
I do.
And when you turn to the next page, in the middle of the page, there's an email from Karen Harper to Bill Ratliff that must have been forwarded to you because of the CC above. Or I'm sorry,
What?
it was not forwarded to you. Okay. Let's look at the middle of that page, the email from Karen Harper.
Okay.
She writes towards the bottom of her email, I don't know anything about the chargeback system. I don't know anything about the chargeback system, which is how we detected which physicians' pain clinics are receiving our product through Sunrise. Do you see that?
I read that, yep.
And
That's it.
above that, Bill Ratliff, the Director of Security, responds, understood, but believe that John and Victor do know or can recommend someone. Right?
Oh, sorry. I see that.
So the Director of Security believed that you did know about the chargeback system, and that it's how you detected, or Mallinckrodt detected, which physicians' pain clinics are receiving our product through Sunrise, right?
Object to the form.
That's I did not have a working knowledge or any experience with chargebacks. So if that's what he's saying here, and I don't see that in his words, that I have a working knowledge of the chargeback system, that's an inaccurate statement. We have a chargebacks team in place, and if that's what he meant. Okay.
Okay. So he seemed to think that you understood how that system operated. Did you respond to his email and say, I don't know anything about this, you have to contact somebody else?
Which one? This one is not to me. This one is to this one's to Karen, and this one's Karen to Bill. I'm not in that. I'm not in those.
Right. You were involved in this Sunrise audit, though, right?
I set up the meeting. Yes.
Okay. And did you tell Mr. Ratliff at that time that you did not understand anything about the chargeback system, or were you in fact working with the system to some degree and understood what was in it?
I don't
Check
remember.
to the form.
Sorry. I don't remember what I told Bill Ratliff. I barely remember Bill Ratliff. So you're talking about something from 10 years ago, give or take. Thank you.
You've been handed what's been marked Exhibit 14, MNKT10000290041. The bottom half of that page is an email from Kathy Stewart dated August 12, 2009 to Karen Harper and Bill Ratliff, and you are CC'd on that. Do you see that?
I do.
And who is Kathy Stewart?
I remember the name, but I don't remember what she did for the company.
And do you see the subject line of that email?
I do.
And it's Sunrise Chargeback Summary XLS, right?
No. Oh, up here, yes. Down here, no.
Okay, and I'll just read what she says. Please review the attached summary worksheet. I took the chargeback file marketing provided and removed pharmacies. Then I removed purchases of methadone, and she lists a variety of other drugs. Methadone, methylphenidate, hydromorphone, and oxy oral solutions. Since the volumes were very small in comparison of the remaining oxy products, I reduced them to the lowest common denominator by taking the quantity sold times package size times milligram per dose. The data is for the period CY08 and CY09 through July. Do you see that?
I do.
So this shows, and again, this is a report that was sent to you, Kathy Stewart, taking chargeback data and sorting it based on a variety of characteristics in order to create a report.
The report was not sent to me. It was,
Well, a
I was
summary
CC'd on it.
But nonetheless, the email refers to the attached summary worksheet, and that was created by sorting the information in the chargeback system, according to this email.
Okay.
Right? Now, Mr. Borelli, when you were working for Mallinckrodt and selling oxycodone, among other drugs, did you ever wonder what your distributor customers were doing with all of the oxy you were selling them?
I wonder where all my products goes.
Okay. And did you, since, as we've seen, even if you didn't sort the chargeback system yourself, you received reports, you knew you could receive reports out of the chargeback system, right?
I'm not so familiar with the chargeback system, so I don't know what I infrequently asked for.
Okay. But you could have asked somebody in the chargeback system, or the chargeback department, to sort data, to give you a better understanding of where all the drugs, where all that oxy you were selling to your distributor clients was going when they sold it to their clients, right?
We could do that on all of our products, yes. Okay.
Mr. Borelli, I'm handing you what's been marked Exhibit 15. And again, for the record, this is another printout that we created from the Excel file produced by Mallinckrodt. And at the front of the worksheet, it indicates the Bates number of the spreadsheet itself that was produced by Mallinckrodt. And you can see that it was produced from MNK T1 0000264,291. And this is a sort of Sunrise sales of oxycodone 15 and 30 tabs. Do you see that at the header?
I do.
And so using the chargeback system, you or someone else in the chargeback department could go into the system and could sort on a particular type of drug. We saw this on the last email, and could sort on the quantity of drugs sold, correct?
No, you said I can, and I did not ever go into chargeback data individually or on my own. Did I receive this from, and I'm not sure what department Kathy Stewart was in. It looks like she supplied chargeback data. You mentioned marketing department. At least there's a few names on here that look familiar from marketing department, but
I understand.
But you said me, and I did not do that.
Again, you individually were not sorting data, but you could ask the chargeback department or other people at Mallinckrodt to sort the data, so you, Victor Borelli, could see what your distributor clients were doing with the oxy, for example, that you sold those distributor clients, right? And this chart you have not seen before because we created it.
Oh, okay.
And we created it from, again, the information produced by Mallinckrodt, the Excel file. And we have sorted, knowing that it's possible to sort the chargeback data based upon the type of drug, the quantity of drug, and the downstream customer of Sunrise. We have sorted it that way. And what you'll see is a list of the top 10 customers of Sunrise.
Okay.
And this is information taken out of the chargeback system.
Okay.
Can I have a standing objection to this exhibit?
Yes.
Thank you.
And if you look at the top of this top 10 list, you see there's an individual, Michael Shook. You see that? And Michael Shook, we learned from Mallinckrodt's chargeback system between September 30th of 2008 and March 5th, 2010, purchased Oxy 15 and 30, 134 different times for a total quantity of 728,400 UOM. Do you see that?
I do.
And Michael Shook is an MD, so he's a dispensing physician. So if you had asked the chargeback department to sort your distributor client Sunrise's sales to downstream customers, you could have created a list like this, which showed the top downstream customers of your distributor clients, correct?
Object to the form.
I guess so.
Do you have any sense of whether one doctor ordering Oxy 134 times to the tune of 728,400 UOM seems excessive?
I don't know his client base. I don't know anything about that doctor.
Okay. And had you done a sort like this and identified him as the single top purchasing downstream customer of Sunrise, you could have learned something about him, right?
Object to the form.
I would learn something about him.
Okay, you could have asked somebody in security at Mallinckrodt to go visit this doctor's clinic, right? You could go see what kind of doctor in Florida orders 134 orders of Oxy in this time period, 9:30 to 3:10, right?
Object to the form.
When you say go see, I would not be visiting with the ship to column doctors. Sunrise had Sunrise had a specific person working for them, retired DEA agent that did that vetted their customers for them to say, I think he took pictures of the front of the building, took pictures of the back of the building, took pictures of Volta. Again, I said he was a DEA, Louis Fisher, a DEA, retired DEA agent. So they had somebody to do that, to vet their customer base.
Understood. If you
So I
or
would
someone
not have
else,
visited these. I'm sorry, I would not have visited this. I don't know who they are.
you never visited any pain clinics or downstream customers of your distributor clients.
So I did work a day with Louis, just to understand what he does for a living.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that might have been even before we opened. I don't remember the timing, so forgive me. But I think that was even before we created an account with Sunrise, and we did not create Sunrise. They were buying from other manufacturers prior to Mallinckrodt that, and I don't know the circumstances, that may have had back order issues, DEA quota issues. I don't remember. So I'm sorry if I.
Who chose the clinic that you visited with Louis Fisher with Sunrise?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
Sorry.
But nonetheless, in the chargeback system, you could have sorted in this way. You could have seen, or someone else, Mallinckrodt, that Michael Shook was the leading purchaser of your Oxy, and you could have provided that information to Louis Fisher, and then you could have gone and visited his clinic.
Object to the
Right?
form.
There's nothing about Michael Shook that was a secret to Mallinckrodt,
Object to the form.
right?
I never heard of them.
Okay.
But if you got this data through chargebacks, it's best to go through chargeback folks to
Right.
confirm that. But I don't know a Michael Shook.
Okay, but you agree that the chargeback system would allow you, if you asked, or anybody else, to sort so you could identify who is the single most frequent purchaser of Oxy from our distributor client, Sunrise. That's something that you or anyone else at Mallinckrodt could have done, right?
I believe so. But I guess I could do the same for CVS stores and Dwayne Reed stores and Walgreens stores. You tell me when to stop. It wouldn't be a normal practice, that's for sure. For
It
me.
was not a normal
For me.
practice for you.
For me.
Was it a normal practice for Mallinckrodt?
Object to the form.
I can't answer that. I don't know.
If Mallinckrodt had sent somebody out to your customers, downstream customers, is that something that you probably would have found out about?
I can't
Object to the
answer.
form.
I don't know the answer to that. Thank you.
Showing you what's been marked Exhibit 16. This is a short article with the headline, Florida physician gets 4 years in prison for operating pill mill. Do you see that? And the date on this is June 29, 2011.
I do.
And it says, Michael Shook, MD of Oakland Park, Florida, has been sentenced to 4 years in prison for illegally prescribing painkillers to Kentuckians who traveled to a Florida-based pill mill, according to a report by the Middlesboro Daily News. Is that what that says?
Hold on, I object to this Exhibit 16 in this line of questions. Go ahead.
That's what that says.
Okay, and then if you skip a paragraph, it says 90% of patients at the pill mill were from Kentucky. Before writing prescriptions for oxycodone and methadone, Dr. Shook performed only limited examinations, if any at all. All the Kentucky visitors paid him in cash and filled the prescriptions at the clinic's in-house pharmacy. Do you see that?
I do.
So do you think that if you had gone to this clinic and seen what was going on, that you would have seen a parking lot full of cars with out-of-state plates and cash transactions?
Object to the form of the question.
I don't know what I would have seen.
Okay. From the description of this clinic, is there anything about it that sounds like it would have been difficult to see that people were coming in droves from out of state to buy pain pills from Dr. Shook?
Object to the form of the question.
So I don't know what the parking lot would have looked like. I don't know that. I don't know.
So if the information in this article is accurate, and there were people in droves from Kentucky traveling to this Florida-based pill mill, wouldn't you expect to see a lot of cars with out-of-state plates in that parking lot?
Object to the form of the question.
I don't. How
You're bewildered by these questions. This is the person who purchased the most oxycodone of any of Sunrise customers. And Sunrise was your distributor customer, right?
They were for a time, yes. That's
And
correct.
you know your customers, right? That's your, as a salesman, that's what you're supposed to do, know
try
your
to,
customers.
yeah.
Okay. And so your customer, Sunrise, their number one client was Dr. Shook, right? And chargeback system data would have allowed you to see who the number one client was, right? And there's nothing that stopped you from asking someone at Mallinckrodt, if not yourself, go see what's going on there. This guy seems to be ordering an awful lot of Oxy.
Objection to the form of the questions.
Can you ask that again, please?
Can you read it back, please?
My keyboard's not working. Oh. Can you get it from me one time? I'm sorry. Gotta fix this at lunch.
I'll ask it again. Sunrise was your customer.
Yeah.
They're a wholesale distributor, right?
Sunrise, yes.
Sunrise was-
I don't know if they were my customer here, but
Okay.
go ahead.
Sunrise was purchasing large volumes of Oxy from Mallinckrodt, right?
Not compared to, but compared to a Cardinal or a Dwayne Reed or a CVS, I don't know.
The amount that Sunrise was purchasing increased significantly in a 2008, 2009, 2010 time period. Do you recall that?
I believe so.
Sunrise's number one customer was Michael Shook. You see that in the chargeback system, right?
I do.
Do you believe Michael Shook is the kind of person that should be receiving Mallinckrodt-made oxycodone?
Object to the form of the question.
I don't know this person.
Mr. Borelli, if you turn back to Exhibit 15, the list of Sunrise's top 10 downstream customers. Number 10 on that list is an individual physician named Nader Shihada. Do you see that? And you see that between
I do.
March 2009 and June 2010, Mr. Shihada purchased Oxy 15 and 30 102 times from Sunrise to the tune of 451,700 government UOM. Do you see that?
I do.
So again, if you or if someone else at Mallinckrodt had sorted Sunrise's customers for the customers that purchased the most, and you made a top 10 list, he'd be on the top 10 list, right?
Objection to the form of the question.
I believe so.
I'm showing you what's been marked Exhibit 16. I'm sorry, Exhibit 17. This is a press release from the DEA dated March 4th, 2011, with the heading, DEA to Doctor, You've Been Served. This is in Miami, Florida, and if you read down in that paragraph, it says, the DEA's investigation of Dr. Shihada has determined that his continued registration to prescribe controlled substances is inconsistent with the public interest and constitutes an imminent danger to public health and safety. Do you see that?
Can I have a standing objection to this exhibit and
Yes.
line of questions? Thank you.
I do see that.
So this is another person that if you or if someone else at Mallinckrodt had sorted on the top 10 customers of Sunrise, everything about him, his name, his address, his DE registration number, the number of times he purchased from Sunrise, and the specific pills that were purchased, that would be included in the information that Mallinckrodt could see, correct?
Object to the form. Go ahead.
I believe so.
So we can go back to Exhibit 10. We went through this spreadsheet before, and this is the sort of Sunrise sales isolating Dr. Schultz's purchases. Correct?
I believe so.
And if you look down the column that says invoice date, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the right, there's a date associated with every time Sunrise sold Mallinckrodt's Oxy to Dr. Schulz, correct?
I see that column.
And you see that a number of those transactions, most of them, are after July 14th, 2009. Do you see that? In fact, I've counted.
I do.
There are 25 individual transactions after or starting with July 14th, 2009 forward, there are 25 transactions. Okay. You can take my word if you don't feel like counting it. And as we saw in the earlier email with the detective in Tennessee and with Bill Ratliff, at that time, there was an investigation of pills prescribed that ended up in Tennessee. And those pills were prescribed by Dr. Schulz. And assuming that's the case, that meeting with Mr. Ratliff, which set in motion the Sunrise audit, occurred in July. Turn and find the exact date. Which exhibit that is. Here it is. So Mr. Collins contacted Mr. Ratliff. Which exhibit number is it?
12.
On July 7th, 2009, setting in motion a discussion with the Director of Security. On July 15th, and there's conversations July 29th, and an audit gets set up with Sunrise on July 29th.
Okay.
So after Dr. Schulz has been identified in July, there are 25 transactions in which Sunrise continued to sell to Dr. Schulz. Is that correct?
Object to the following
Based upon
question.
this data?
Looks that way, yes.
And do you recall ever raising with your client Sunrise its sales to Dr. Schulz?
Object to the form.
I do not.
And if you had told Sunrise at that time to stop selling its product to Dr. Schulz, is that something you would likely remember?
Object to the form.
It would, but we're talking 8 or 9 years ago now, so
But you don't believe you told Sunrise to stop selling to Dr. Schulz, do you?
Object to the form.
I don't remember.
Showing you what's been marked Exhibit 18. This is a Broward Palm Beach News Times article with the title, Pill Mill Doctor Charged with Trafficking Oxycodone. It's dated March 25th, 2011. Do you see that?
I do.
Can I have a standing objection to this Exhibit 18 in this line of questions? Thank you.
And it starts, following an investigation by the Palm Beach State Attorney, Delray Pain Management Doctor, Dr. Barry Schulz, 54, was arrested Thursday and charged with trafficking oxycodone and unlawful prescription of a controlled substance. Do you see that?
I do.
And are you aware that Dr. Schulz was convicted, and based on this and a manslaughter, he's currently serving a 157-year sentence?
I was not.
But back in 2011, when he was charged, right, Mallinckrodt obviously had its chargeback system and had the details of all of his transactions, correct?
Object to the form.
I believe so.
And going back in time to when Dr. Schulz was first raised as a concern in 2009, again, Mallinckrodt had all of the transaction information with Dr. Schulz, down to the pill type, data transaction, and quantity, correct?
Object to the form.
I believe so.
And did you or anyone to your knowledge at Mallinckrodt go to Dr. Schultz's clinic and investigate what was going on in his clinic following the 2009 arrest in Tennessee, in which pills prescribed by him had been found?
I can't answer that for all of Mallinckrodt folks. I don't believe I did.
Is it your testimony here today that Mallinckrodt had no obligation to try to prevent its products from going to doctors like Dr. Shook, Dr. Shihata, and Dr. Schulz?
I did not say that.
So is it your testimony that they did have an obligation to seek to prevent its pills from going to doctors like
think-
Shook, Shihata, and Schulz?
We had a process in place to a chargeback, a suspicious order monitoring system in place for this.
But to your knowledge, that system was not relying on the chargeback data to isolate physicians that were purchasing inordinate quantities in order to further investigate those dispensing physicians.
I can't speak about that group of folks in that department.
But as far as your involvement, you were not involved in anything like that.
Working in that department?
No, investigating physicians like Dr. Shook, Dr. Shihata, and Dr. Schulz based upon the data in the chargeback system.
I don't know any of those three doctors that you mentioned.
Would you read the question back, please? Actually, I'll go back further. I asked you, but to your knowledge, that system was not relying on the chargeback data to isolate physicians that were purchasing inordinate quantities in order to further investigate those dispensing physicians. And my question for you is, were you involved in any use of chargeback system data for that purpose?
I was not a first-hand user of that chargeback data.
I understand, but you yourself didn't ask for access to that data in order to investigate dispensing physicians, downstream customers of your clients, like Dr. Shook, Dr. Shihata, and Dr. Schulz.
To the doctor level, I don't believe so, but I did ask, you said I asked for one document before, but to the doctor level, I don't believe so. I think that's why we had folks in place for that.
We're past 12:30. Is this a good time for a lunch break?
Sure.
Great.
Time is 12:40 p.m. We're going off the record.